Hello again. This is part 2 of a chapter 1 lecture. So I just took a 2-minute break here. I had some coffee, but you can watch this, in any order that you want. And I should say, even the lectures that I give in person, I will record one of the days. And so really you'll have a video, all of it on video. So it's unprecedented. We didn't do this before last spring, right? But now you'll have the ability to go back if this is helpful at all. All right. Share screen. All right, so I ended talking about these keyboards. And why did I talk about keyboards? Well, because I'm getting across the point that in evolution, you're going to see things that, and in our bodies, you see things that don't make sense. And as long as it works, it keeps going. And so that's the key. All right, so for this class, I think I've made it clear, and I hate long. It's confusing in the beginning, like I say, these emails, but once we get in the swing of things, and then I looked this morning, a lot of you already have signed up and Connect. You've gone to the first assignment and put it in your code or get a free trial. And now you're part of the class. And now you'll have each chapter, you have Learn Smarts that you do, these homeworks, and I'll put quizzes up there. I may even give that final exam through Connect as well. And the ebook is there for you. And some of you asked me, should I get the paper version? It's up to you completely. Some people like to have the paper version. I do too. Other of you, you can look on your phone anywhere, tablet, laptop, and so, whatever makes you happy. And I'm not going to check if you have textbook. I don't care, but you need to be in Connect because those, when you take homeworks and quizzes, they will go right into Blackboard. Your grades, you'll always know your grade all the way along. There's going to be no question. When you take homeworks and quizzes, the most important thing is to look at the deadlines. As long as you do them, homeworks, you guys will get like 99 or 100% on those because you can do them over and over. So you want to make sure you do them on time is all. And then there's a little lag and then they'll transfer over to Blackboard. So if you don't see something there and you did it, you can let me know, but wait a few days because it connects over, it takes a little time. So yeah, so McGraw-Hill, this is a nice textbook. I've been using it for years and it's readable, it's at a good level. I think you'll enjoy it. And this class, you'll hear my lectures, you'll study this, you'll be doing Learn Smarts, just immerse yourself in this material. It's fascinating, great stuff. And be prepared for the exams and quizzes and homework. You guys will do great. Now the entire lab, there's no lab manual to buy. Instead, it's an electronic lab manual. This is a beautiful thing. This Curve Cloud is, you need to buy it, but it's good for the whole year. You get the 12-month version. And on there is where you'll be able to do some labs at home. You'll be able to go through, answer questions, and work with material. And in lab, we're going to take your ECGs and breathing and muscle, and it's going to go right into Curve Cloud. It's on the cloud too, so anything you put in there, like if your computer shuts down, don't worry about it because it's being constantly saved up there, and you'll be able to refer to that to study for lab. So the Curve Cloud is our lab manual, and you're going to log into that and see what you need to do each week on there. And there'll be quizzes at the end of these labs. I'll talk about your grade. So that's what you need for this course in terms of buying things. Bookstore, or both of these can be done online now. For the first time, able to get Curve Cloud online. You always had to go into the bookstore, but because of COVID and things. Good deal. So that's what you need, these two things, and this is what we're going to use to do the course. Yeah, so I put up the syllabus. The one I emailed to you is the same as this. I feel comfortable. If changes happen, I'll let you know ahead of time. But you can read through the whole syllabus. There's all kinds of information in there. But I'll do the grading and kind of our general plan here. So here we are, week 1. And instead of lecturing in person this morning, better idea just to give you all the same experience. And then next week, bam, we'll start with a lecture on histology. Notice chapter 5, I kind of skip ahead. It's because our lab is histology, so it works just right. I'm going to lecture on this, and then in lab, over the next 2 weeks, you guys will, the next 2 weeks. You guys will look at slides, study online, and learn the basic histology. It's the microscopic anatomy. We've got to start there and learn normal histology in order to understand disease and what's going on. You need to see, what does your skin look like? What does bone look like? What does muscle look like? What does ligaments and tendons, all these things. So, yeah, and so taking a look, you can see this first section, honestly, we're kind of getting you guys on the same page. I'm not thrilled to teach chemistry and some of these things. You should know, you've all had it, the background. Cell physiology, that's the biggest chapter in this section, we'll go through cell respiration, member glycolysis, and citric acid cycle, electron transport chain. So for some of you, it's going to be, oh my God, I'm taking organic chemistry, you're teaching me about atoms, but, so you can just go quickly through that. But I'll test you on this. This first section is going to kind of give you guys the background for the rest of the year. Yeah, so make sure you understand, we're talking about muscle contraction, you understand what binding, the chemistry is. So that's why we teach chemistry in an anatomy physiology course, at least overview. Good stuff though, we'll talk about different kinds of fats and carbs and proteins, things like that especially. Yeah, and then looking down, then this is the bones and muscle section and joints. Yeah, beautiful. A lot of you athletic inclined people are most interested in muscles and bones and joints. And then a big section, and then the nervous system. Yeah, so that's a complex one. Yeah. In terms of grades, I think that's one you want to look out for. Make sure you put a lot of effort in that because it's complex. And then the week before Thanksgiving, we'll take that exam on the nervous system. Then you have Thanksgiving off that week. I actually won't see you once you leave for that. And then this last week, I'll just record lectures and we'll do some practical online final. Yeah, that's the plan. That's the plan. For you guys, you have, you're either cohort A or B. And let me know if you don't know. It's in my original email. I probably should put it on Blackboard somewhere so it's like a place you can look at it. So you'll either come on Monday or Wednesday to lecture. Everything's spread out. Of course, you have to wear a mask, all those things, right? So you listen to my lecture either Monday or Wednesday. It'll be the same lecture. And then I'll have something online for you too. And this is nice, actually, kind of pedagogically, teaching-wise, is I can do the things in person that I feel like I should, and some things I can relegate to lecturing online. I can put there. So I've kind of looked at this, and I'm excited. I think it's going to work well. This kind of blended, some things you got to learn on your own. You're going to be studying your text. You're going to be listening to lectures. I'll do the best I can to help you along, and then in person I'll be able to provide. You guys can ask questions, and we'll be able to zero in on things. So that's the plan, of course. And all your classes are done differently, I'm sure, but that's our plan. And labs, the way they really suggested we do is, and that I follow, is that you guys will come every other week to lab. And the week you don't come to lab, you'll do an online portion. Yeah, so that'll work. You'll all get the same experience, but half the labs will be in person, half will be online. And I'll give you those cohorts. I'm waiting to the end of the week. I want things to shuffle out the labs and stuff. So, but you'll know whether you come next week or not, either Monday or Tuesday you come to lab. Yeah, but you show up at lab, make sure you have your mask, you come in, no food or drink, make sure no shorts. I just want to say again, you got to wear shoes, no sandals or anything like that, and you have to wear pants, all right? Or else I have to send you out to go home and come back. I mean, there's no exceptions. I just can't. So, and of course, water bottles, everything, leave outside. Yeah, and so next week we start lab, and those of you that'll be in lab, we'll do half the histology. And then if you don't have lab that week, you'll have on CurriCloud, be able to go do this exercise there. And then the next week it switches. Yeah. And then we'll have our first practical exam, do it right away, just on histology. So it's good. It's kind of, you've got 20-some tissues you need to know. And in lab, I'll show you slides, and you have to identify them and learn that material. Yeah. There you go. I don't think I need to go through the rest of it. You can take a look. So just so you know what you're doing, you either come Monday or Wednesday, and these lecture topics are what I will be lecturing on, and then I'll have videos available on the others, and then you can see exam day, we'll come in, we'll take an exam. And practical will do that, and then you can leave after that. All right. This is next semester, just so you can see what we're going to do. We start out with hormones, endocrine system, great stuff. And then, of course, cardiovascular, looking at a lot of time on blood, the hearts, the immune system. We'll talk a lot about COVID when we get to that. And then respiratory, breathing, lung function, then kidneys and fluids, digestion. Oh, and reproduction will be in here too. Yeah, so that's the year. This year, this semester, we do a lot of bones and muscles and nervous system. Those are the biggies. And then the spring is going to be heart, lungs, kidneys kind of thing. So that's how it's split up. The lab in the spring is be a lot more experiments that we'll do. This fall, a lot of learning the bones and muscles that part's going to be kind of learning without, doing manipulations. All right, interested. What about your grade? It's all going to be on Blackboard. You can at any time figure out where you're at. There's no mystery, nothing. There's no extra credit. There's no papers you're going to write. It's pretty basic. We're going to have 4 exams. In the past, I had the final, had comprehensive, always. Comprehensive part to it, but I'm not going to do it this time. It's going to be on the last chapter. So we got a lot going on. And then the discussion group, some of you have already, I saw that. I've been very busy this morning, all kinds of stuff going on. But I'll give you points for contributing to the discussion. And I put a discussion page on there. Put any questions you have, and each other, you can answer it. You can talk, and then I'll monitor it. I'll be in there, and I'll throw stuff in there just so that we get some community places you can ask questions and get it answered quickly instead of not knowing or emailing me every question. Things I'll be able to work on that, and I'll get to know you and see if I can memorize your names. See your eyes. Yeah. So the 10% of your grade will be on Connect. There'll be quizzes, and then I'll give you points for the discussion. Minor, but a few. And then homework. Again, you guys should get 99, 100% of that. And then you can see lab is worth a quarter of your grade, and then lectures worth 3/4. And we'll have 3 practicals. 2 will do in lab, and 1 we'll have online. And then each lab will have a quiz at the end of it. It's easy. It's multiple choice, maybe 5 or 10 questions at the most, but you guys will do real well on that. The hardest part will be the exams and the practicals, in terms of the quizzes, homework, the lab quizzes, those, you guys will get most of those points. So strategies, you guys can form groups, Zoom groups, in-person groups, as long as you're, suitably protected with doing that, and to help each other out. You want to just take this material and just, I get excited. It's so interesting, this stuff. I mean, sure, in the beginning, I got to, go over some chemistry. It's still good, all right? But we'll get to the skin and talk about tattoos and tanning and how it works. And we'll talk about the bones and the muscles and joints, great stuff. So I want you guys to get excited. I want you to learn it. So just that, make it like a job so that you just consistently are always studying. I know, listen to me. I know all the other teachers think their classes are most important, most interesting. But really, it's the human body. You guys walk around with this. You're going to have, your life, your relatives with diseases, and to be able to understand this. I mean, I think everyone, should study anatomy physiology. It's part of being a human, So just make it your own. Get interested in it. Ask me, use me. Office hours. I'm so happy to help you to go over anything that's kind of complex. So please, again, come to my office or email me or Zoom. We can Zoom anything. I'm so happy. This is my life, is to help you guys this semester with this. All right. I mean, I have another life. I do all kinds of things. I got a great, family and friends. But I'm really focused on helping all 110 of you, be the best you can be. And you guys, it's up to you. If you just think I'm not going to come to class, I'll study before the test, you're not going to do well. You can't cram this stuff. It's just too much. You're going to be very unhappy, and you're not going to do well. So, guys, you're all sophomores at least. You should. I shouldn't have to tell you too much like this, but you want to. This is And for a lot of you, this is the most like basic course, you know, looking at anything in health or athletics, anatomy, physiology. I mean, this is, you need to, it wouldn't help you to cheat and kind of, I got through it, you know. No, I mean, this is, you need to make this, you need to understand this. So how's that? I'm giving you, I mean, it's just as clear as that. This is stuff that you guys should want to learn and be interested in. And it's a lot. There's a lot of information. And it's at a thin level. You often look at it as, is it a deep lake? You get into like a higher level, you know, kinesiology specific or advanced ECG course, you know. Or this is really a large lake with a lot of different subjects I need to cover to prepare you for these later courses. All right, so that's the way I approach this. I have to cover a lot. And so my lectures, you know, this is not like I can have, you know, discussion, a lot of discussion time. We have a lot to cover. So I love having questions, some back and forth a little bit, but a lot of this course is just foundational. I need to just present a lot of material and have you guys, you need to just assimilate a lot. You need to study hard. All right, I think I've said enough. Now, people in the evaluations, they really like to learn smart. It is adaptive. When you are studying this homework, it knows when you get things wrong and it comes back to it, it keeps hitting it. And if you got something, it doesn't come back. So just like these other things you guys are used to that it tracks your behavior and helps you, that's what we're talking about here. When I was in college, I had a textbook and I studied it. You know, now you guys have a tool here. You can go in and you can quiz yourself. You can go in, you can highlight things online, and you can use these things. So that's what's there to help you, and take advantage of it. It's a wonderful thing. And looking at, you know, using this Connect, again, this is, the company does this, but the data is real. Looking at how helpful these tools are for you. Just go in, people just keep using Learn Smart. Multiple choice questions, that's what the exams are gonna be, multiple choice, true, false, right? You're going to have questions, and everything I ask in the exam, I will have talked about in class. So it's not going to pull something out of the text that I didn't talk about. So you have that, and this is important information. You guys are listening. That's what the test will be like. There'll be 50, 60 questions, 65. You guys have an hour and a half that you'll be able to, I'll give you a practice exam too, some practice questions, but every time you do multiple choice questions, it's helping. I mean, so keep hitting those Learn Smarts, read it over. I like to write things on a paper. So instead of just like looking, listening, I listened, I looked at my PowerPoint. If I make an outline and I actually, or type it, working with the material helps. Make flashcards, you have Quizlets. So we could talk if you guys have any, you know, questions what to help you. But you've got a lot, the information is there. It's in the chapters. I'm going to help inspire you and present it as well. So you have learners that like to listen to me, ones that like to read primarily, to work in the material. You're going to use all this to take all this material and put it up here. Yeah. And this is also just to encourage you, you know, get Connect right away. Just do it. Because you can see, they looked at this. If you wait, the people that add it later on don't do as well. And this, I'm a scientist, and so this is kind of selecting people that, if you kind of wait till the last minute, you probably wait till the last minute to study as well. But anyway, so just some more encouragement to go-getters, you know, get in there, get the Connect, start looking at chapter 1 right away. All right, well, okay, so I've talked a lot about, hopefully you understand how the course is gonna work, right? I'm here, love to teach this, I'm excited, we're gonna hit it, we're gonna learn it, online and in person, and you all know that I'm here to help you, and reach out anytime. I enjoy talking to you guys. All right, so a little bit of lecture, actually not much. You could read chapter 1. You want to look at general vocabulary for A&P. History, I'll have you learn 3 people, and yeah, we'll talk about this, all right? So, history, again, very briefly, but we have been studying anatomy, I mean, as long as, you know, humans have been around. You can't help it, but cavemen, they got broken bones and toothaches, and the way that they killed their prey, they knew about anatomy. They knew where the heart was in a mammoth to put the spear. They understood their anatomy. And here's one of the three really names I'll talk about here, but Galen. Galen was the guy, the father of anatomy version 1, early version. So he was a Greek, he was a physician to the gladiators. So he saw some really gory stuff, right? Imagine the Colosseum and lions ripping limbs off and how horrible it was. So he saw some anatomy. But again, the dissecting humans and studying humans has always been taboo. We're weird about death, humans. And for a long time, you couldn't study the dead because of ideas that we had about doing that. So he worked a lot on Africa, just across the Mediterranean from Greece, and he looked at Barbary apes or monkeys and stuff. He dissected them, and so you see all kinds of mistakes. Like he has the rectus abdominis coming up the chest as it does in monkeys, but not in humans, and of course, all kinds of ideas. We're talking about 200 AD. So this is early on, and we didn't understand a lot. But the important thing to remember about Galen is, physician of the gladiators, he did look at some human anatomy, but he used a lot of apes and animals, and so a lot of mistakes. But he was the Bible of anatomy for 1,300 freaking years. All right, think about how many generations that is. Let's say he lived to be 50-year-old in that day. Yeah. Can you imagine that time frame just will blow you away? But Galen was the book you looked at for human anatomy for so long. And Leonardo da Vinci, you all know him, tremendous artist, philosopher, mathematician. I mean, what the definition of the Renaissance man, right? But just talking about the anatomy part of him was amazing too. He did get to dissect some bodies, but the church often, put an end to that. But some of these drawings, he had a fetus in a womb, and the bones and muscles, just some amazing and anatomical drawings, right? All right, and the last guy is Vesalius. I want you to know about Andreas Vesalius. He was Belgium, and this guy is really the father of modern anatomy. Sorry, there's no mother. It's kind of sexist looking back, but back then, that's just the way it was. So Vesalius, I think he was only like 26 years old. Think about what I've done, what I did in my life, nothing compared to him. He wrote De Humani Corpus Fabrica, of the fabric of the human body, this multi-tome book, these big, beautiful illustrations into the human body. And he was able to look at human bodies and dissect. And his main thing was, Galen had a lot of look at anatomy through superstition, religious things in there. And then Vesalius was all about, he even wanted students to dissect and to look at the evidence. And I know in today's world, looking at how we reject science and evidence, but this is what is important. So he looked at the evidence, and he wrote the book that really changed the course after 1,300 years of actual accurate anatomy. And it was like almost like a spectacle. You would pay to come in to see these dissections, and the professor would sit up in a chair with a stick and point to his minions who would do the actual dissecting. And they would dissect the guts first and then the limbs, because it would rot, if you didn't do that in that order before embalming and everything like that. And so they would dissect bodies, and they found out in the past when they found something that was different from Galen, like, must be our mistake, or must be a weird specimen, because Galen couldn't be wrong. And now they're putting it on the actually, like, believing your senses and not believing some authority. And so Vesalius, amazing at his age to put this beautifully illustrated human anatomy. All right. And here I throw this. This is see if you guys, how your liberal arts education, you understand if you know the artist here. He's a Dutch artist. We got it. Yeah, Rembrandt. Rembrandt. This is I think it's Professor Tulp's anatomy lesson. But yeah, and it's interesting looking at England had called the Anatomy Act, something like that, where you had to actually have a law so that you couldn't dig up graves or like kill bums in the alley and sell it to medical schools. It was getting to that, to how they would get their bodies, criminals and things like that. And so now today here at UNE, we have cadavers, and all the cadavers, the donors donated their body before their deaths. And and we embalm them, and so that's how we learn. Yeah. This class will dissect animal parts, sheep hearts and brains and eyeballs and kidneys and things like that. Yeah, and today we have all kinds of great anatomical tools. This visible human project, they have a man, a woman, and a child. They froze and took a bandsaw, it's like little slices, and then took pictures, and so you can go online and like fly through the body and see how the muscles is really cool. And of course, I'm sure a lot of you have seen Body Worlds or Body Works. That's where they plastinate the body. And there's some controversy there too about, well, I won't get into it, but it's amazing. Here's the skin. And these are just beautiful dissections, and it's opened up to a lot of the public looking at anatomy. It's a beautiful thing. All right, so looking at advances in medicine, now we use the scientific method. We use science, data, facts. Again, I smile because of today's political climate, but I just have to say, you know, that's what we go by. And if you want to know if something works, you do clinical trials that are double blind. You have a placebo group, and that's how we know it works. We don't listen to someone just because they spout off something. Even an authority, well, they know what they're doing. No. You show me the evidence. Can we repeat it? Can we see it? That's how we work, or we should work, right? What's interesting is that we look at our state of knowledge in anatomy, physiology, or science in general. You think, does it go like this? It's clearly going up, right? We learn more and more. But what if I told you it's more like this? Yeah, and that's really what we see. And what we see here is that with periods of where we learn a lot, really rapid, is usually when there's some new technology or new paradigm or idea. So, you know, the idea of evolution came about with Darwin, and then everything makes sense. And so all this research came about. Or the microscope, we invented the microscope, oh my God. Then we learned all this new stuff really quickly, and then it kind of flattened out. And then we invented the electron microscope. Oh my God, we can see even closer, we learn all this stuff. So that's how really our knowledge progresses. It's often kind of herky-jerky like this, where a new technology or new idea really causes a lot of activity at once like that. And some of the things we have today, we're really looking at genetics, even pharmacy now is pharmacogenomics, where we look back and say, oh my God, we used to just give the same pill to everyone. In the future, we'll take a DNA and we'll see, oh, okay, well, we know that this drug works better in this person's genotype and stuff like that. So a lot with genetics, of course, is going on, looking at, now we can really identify disease, but the ability to go in and do genetic therapies is the future. And growing tissues in culture, you know. We'll look back, oh, we used to like rip someone's heart out of a dead person and put it, we'll be able to grow our own hearts from our stem cells in the future, right? And so, yeah, this is going to be in your lifetime, but that's kind of the state where we're at now. All right. Well, we're going to go through these systems, and that's the way we're teaching this class. When I taught gross anatomy, we did it regionally, because you can't dissect like all the muscles or all the bones at once. So we did, you know, the back, the limbs, the head, the neck, that kind of thing. So we're going to look at system by system. But what's important is I want you to put it all together. When you look at just, you know, the muscular system, you realize it has to be fed with oxygen from the respiratory system. It needs glucose from the digestive system, and it works on the bone skeletal system, across the joints, right? So all these things are interrelated. So we're kind of pulling them out individually to help us study it, but they all are working together. Yeah. So make sure you guys understand integumentary system is your skin, muscle, skeletal, nervous. This is a big one. Nervous system, that's complicated, yeah. Next semester, we'll get to endocrine and circulatory. We don't talk a lot about lymphatic system, except maybe your lymph nodes or your spleen, but we'll talk about that. Next semester, respiratory, digestive, urinary, and reproductive. And of all the systems, the only one that really counts is the reproductive system, or doesn't count, right? You can live without the reproductive system. Well, you can live an entire life without that, right? But it's the only one that really counts, because you are all gonna die. The only question is, do you have any genes that will go on to the next generation? I should point that out too, not to be depressing, but I hear people say, oh, it's sad they're dying. You are dying. we're all dying. It's just a matter of when. It's a matter of rate. You have a finite lifespan, and you will perish. And I have no kids, and so I don't have. But I have my brother has kids, and so I have a lot of my genes are there, and you can do the math, the genetics. But that's what it's about: is organisms die, but populations go on. Their genes go on. All right, so looking at your body, oh my God, it's so fascinating. We're talking about, we're made of trillions of cells, all working together. You can't just throw a cell out, put it in a petri dish. It'll live for a while, but you got to feed it. You got to make sure it's the right temperature, all these things, right? So all of our cells work together because we're a multicellular organism. Amoeba do it in one cell. We have it multicellular. And you can make us, I like this. This is a schematic. This is you. And you've got a digestive tube from mouth to anus. It's open on either end. So really, if you swallow something, is it really in your body? Not really. It's just on its way out. You may absorb it in your bloodstream, and then it's in your body, right? So we take all these nutrients and water and minerals into the digestive system, and then it's taken up by capillaries in your gut and enters the blood. Yeah. And then our respiratory system, we take air in and out, and that has like half the size, half a tennis court is the size of this. Imagine this saran wrap that's wet and that blood going right underneath it. That's where we exchange gases by diffusion with the blood. So cool. And it's really, you can see the circulatory system's right in the middle, and the heart delivers the nutrients and this oxygen to all these cells in our body that are needy. They're really, they're so picky. They need everything just right, you know? You're gonna see that to the pH and the glucose and the oxygen. It's gotta be just right, and our systems help maintain this. And our urinary system is what filters the blood, and our urine comes out, and the rest of the stuff goes back into the blood. Yeah. And it's about these trillions of cells being babied throughout your body. They are, they get everything delivered to them. Their waste taken away, you know? Yeah, pretty cool. And then you can see that's in our body and outside our body. So in our body, we keep this, maintain this beautiful system with everything just right? All the electrolytes and the temperature and the pH, it's all gonna be just right in there. No matter if I'm out on this nice warm day or the same day in January here in Maine, I keep that same internal temperature and everything. Yeah. And that is called homeostasis, right? Static means, you know, staying the same. And so this is our body keeping the stable internal environment. So obviously a critical term, you know, you need to know. And so how do we do this? How do we keep, you know, our glucose levels? You know, if you're hypoglycemic or hyperglycemic, you go in a coma and you die. You know, if you're acidotic or alkalosis, if your pH is wrong, you die. So how do we keep everything in this narrow, narrow band? It's through these control mechanisms. And so in our body, we have receptors that are constantly measuring our pH in our body and our glucose levels and our phosphate levels. Everything is being constantly looked at. And then some control center has to have some set points so we know what to do. And then effector, we're going to do something about it. So your glucose levels change. You can secrete insulin. It's going to change that. So you need to do that. So indeed, some kind of receptor. And so when the environment changes, the control center, let's say it's your temperature center in your brain, if that's set at 98.6 Fahrenheit, if it gets too high or too low, you're going to do something about it. You're going to start sweating. You're going to start shivering. You're going to do these things to maintain this homeostasis. And much like the thermometer in the room that you're in, I'm outside, but you're going to have a set point in your thermometer. And if the room gets too hot, it's going to click on the air conditioning and it's going to cool it down. It's called negative feedback. It's going to go in the opposite direction. And if it's too cold, the heater is going to come on and it's going to bring it back in the opposite direction to keep it right there. And that's what happens in our body, for instance. We have a set temperature in our hypothalamus. And if you have a fever, you actually set it a little bit higher and then it comes back down again. So you have a set point, it's like a computer up there. And if you are, let's see, if you get too hot, you're going to dilate the blood vessels in your skin. So you get in a hot tub, you turn all red, you start sweating to get rid of that heat. And if you get too cold, you're going to shunt the blood to your core, you know, so you get more ashen, you get more ashen, you get whiter, you know, your extremities, right? And then you may even try to shiver to try to get more heat in your body. And so it's called negative feedback, right? Your blood sugar is too high, you get rid of that blood sugar. You take that sugar and you store it. Your blood sugar is too low, the opposite, you release more blood sugar. So negative is the normal kind of thing. Positive feedback is weird. That's where the room got too hot, turn on the heat. Oh my God, see what's gonna happen? It's just gonna turn into a kiln, into an inferno, right? How the hell does that happen in your body? Well, only in a couple weird cases. So negative feedback always goes in the opposite direction. It's gonna keep you stable somewhere, right? If it gets too high, bring it down, too low, bring it up, right? Positive feedback, yeah, it's gonna increase the effect. And here, childbirth, think about that. The contractions get stronger and stronger, right? They get closer together, yeah. And so the more you stretch the cervix and everything like that, the more the muscle's gonna contract against it. But there's an outcome. There's birth that's gonna stop this thing. Blood clotting too. You're gonna, once you have a break in your vessel, you're gonna start clotting, and that's gonna recruit more clotting factors, but that's also gonna go to a point, and then you're gonna stop the clotting and start repairing. But that's positive feedback where you build up. That's pretty rare. All right, some more anatomy, and again, you can get this from your book, but you can take a look at your body cavities. We are vertebrates that have a hollow body cavity. So if I was to cut open my chest or my abdomen and open it up, I could put my hands in there. There's space in there, right? The organs are going to be slippery and shiny, right? So my intestines are going to look like a bunch of worms I can push around. Oh, there's my stomach, there's my liver, there's my spleen, right? So our organs are within this hollow cavity, and it allows it to move around. You can get pregnant, you can fill up your stomach, things can move and shift, and that's the way we do it. And so I don't have to go through this, but your cranial cavity. Your thoracic cavity is completely separate from your abdominal cavity by your diaphragm, right? Your diaphragm separates your thoracic or chest cavity from your abdomen. Your pelvic cavity is not really separated from your abdominal, but it's just below your pelvis. And there's your ovaries and your rectum and your bladder. So, but there's no real separation, unlike your thorax has that muscle, the diaphragm. Yeah. And then your chest, the two chest cavities called pleural cavities that hold the lungs. They're separate and airtight, right? You can collapse one lung, but not the other. And then your mediastinum in the middle is going to hold your pericardial cavity with your heart, right? You know some of these terms, right? Yeah, we can look at the skull. Orbital cavities hold your eyes, right? And a bunch of fat, things like that. Your oral cavity is separated from your nasal cavity by your palate, right? You got a hard and soft palate, right? Then you have sinuses. We'll go through the sinuses when we do the skull. These are holes in your skull, openings that empty into your nasal cavity. And then your cranial cavity is huge. We have this huge skull that holds our brain. All right, now I want to get this out. This is probably one of my last things here, looking at, in these cavities, you have like this shiny saran wrap that's wet and lubricated. And that's if you open up your body, you look at your lungs, you look at your intestines, they've got this shiny layer on them. And it's called a serous membrane. Serous means it secretes fluid. It's a little bit of lubricating fluid. So your heart has a layer on it that secretes this lubricating fluid. There's another layer out here that also secretes lubricating fluid, and it allows the heart to move easily. Yeah. And the layers that are on the organs, on your hearts, on your intestines, on your lungs, is called the visceral layer. Visceral means guts. Like, I had a visceral reaction to this car accident. It means like a gut reaction. So remember that. Visceral means on the organ. And parietal lines the cavity and the outside of it. It's just some vocabulary you need to get. We'll talk about it the whole time. And so on the lungs, we talk about on the lung is the visceral pleura. Pleura is the coating on the lungs. And the parietal pleura coats the chest cavity on the outside of it. And they actually stick together, the visceral and parietal pleura, by some fluid. You know how like two pieces of wet glass stick together? They stick together like that. But there's those two membranes. The membranes actually are continuous. You're going to see the lung kind of goes through a membrane, and so they're continuous, but I'll show you a picture of this. And then around your heart, we'll talk more about this, but you have the visceral parietal pericardium. It's cold. And then in your abdominal cavity, on your stomach, your liver, and your spleen, you have the visceral parietal peritoneum. And this kind of shows how they're connected. So this is parietal, and this is visceral around the organ. You can see all your organs are connected. I'll show you another picture. So when you look at your guts, they hang in your abdominal cavity, but they're all connected to that back wall. We call it a mesentery. It's where that visceral layer, connects to that parietal layer, is this connection. And in there runs the blood vessels and the nerves, and lymphatics. Yeah. And this really is what I wanted to show you, is that just realize when the lung develops this little lung bud, there's like a layer of saran wrap here, and it pushes into it, and it coats it. But then it still coats the cavity around it. So they're continuous, okay? And we call it around the organ, the visceral, around the cavity, the parietal. So it's gonna work in the heart, the lungs, and in your abdominal cavity too. All right? All right, I love it. The book goes through lifespan changes, and you guys, whether you're an athletic trainer, a pharmacist, or a physical therapist, anything like that, it makes a big difference the age of your patient, because we have a lot of changes that occur. All right, I'm going to give you the bottom line. It's usually not good. We get more wisdom, right? But damn, our joints, our skin especially really shows age. So yeah, our kidney function, heart function, lung function, downhill. All right, but we'll talk about specifically. It happens at the cellular level, and it's a whole interesting thing. I have a friend who published a book about aging and why do we age? Why do we age? What actually happens, and why can a tortoise live over 100 years and a mouse lives 2 or 3 years? And so it's really interesting. Anyway, other world records, still, I looked it up. There's you can see women live longer than men. Jokes come to mind, but I will, you guys just met me. I'll wait on some of those, but well, men are kind of dumb, like, oh, watch this, or, I do all kinds of like that. Yeah, why, 122, I think she was French. The guy might be Japanese, and people often look at, they a lot of yogurt, they not smoke, and things like that. But we age, and eventually we all die. So you're all dying. Yeah. Good morning. All right, so anatomical terminology. No, you don't have to memorize this. I'm just showing this. There's lots of names, but the names for parts, there's actually a whole committee, an anatomical names commission that meets, and they talk about these names. And it standardizes things. So you could be talking to someone in Russia or Australia or anywhere, and they have the same terminology. We all know that this is the metacarpals, and we know that this is the radius right here. So we can all speak the same language. Although people call this the funny bone, the humerus. There's going to be colloquial names. Your heart valve, we call it the left atrioventricular, or the mitral valve, or the bicuspid. 3 different names for the same thing, but there's a standardization, and they're often in Greek or Latin. All right, anatomical position is this is an anatomy thing where you stand upright, feet forward, palms forward, head forward, and we can describe things based on this anatomical position. In a lab, take a picture of yourself, put it up there, you'll be able to see anatomical position, and you can learn, like, this is superior and inferior, medial, lateral. The terms are based on this anatomical position. So just keep in mind that we're picky about this. Anatomical position is anatomical position. And then we can look at superior is towards your head, and inferior is down towards your butt. We talk about dorsal is your back, and ventral. And again, we are standing upright, so things will often, look at sheep, we talk about cranial and caudal, towards your head, caudal is tail. So these terms, towards the middle, the midline is medial, towards the outside is lateral. And then here's some ones we don't use very often, but with the limbs, we're talking about the limbs. Proximal is towards the body, and distal is away. So you can talk about your elbow is proximal to your wrist, or your fingernail is distal to your shoulder. So these are just terms we use, what's proximal or distal. And then deep and superficial is more towards your skin or deeper, right? Yeah, so take a look at these. Yeah, this is not, I don't use this often personally, but ipsilateral is on the same side, contralateral is the opposite, like contrary is opposite. So you talk about someone, they have a bruise and a stab on contralateral sides. Yeah. So these are just terms that we'll use all the time. Medial, lateral, proximal, distal, superior, inferior. And then these body sections and planes. And we'll do it in lab too, because until you do it, you're not going to get it. But sagittal, well, this is three dimensions that we have, right? We're going to have this dimension, and this dimension, right? So think about that. This. All right, 3 dimensions. And these are the sections we talk about. And this is wicked important. See, I'm getting to be a Mainer. When we talk about today's imaging, we look at MRIs and CAT scans. That's where, I mean, this is where it's really coming about. Now, it used to be dissection cuts, but really now we're talking about imaging to understand, what am I looking at here? Oh, that's a sagittal section or a mid-sagittal. So sagittal is anywhere like between your eyes, this kind of section. So any one of these is a sagittal section. Mid-sagittal is the one that's right between your eyes, makes you in the right and left sides. Transverse is this way. Like, remember the old magician trick where they sawed the person in half? That'll be transverse section. And then the one maybe not used the most is this way, cut this way. And it's called the frontal or coronal, 2 different terms that you'll see both of them. Yeah, so try to get yourself, wrap your head around it. So if sagittal is this way, anywhere this way is sagittal. Mid-sagittal is right down the middle. And then parasagittal would be any like parallel one. So any. So you can have a sagittal section that's also a parasagittal. And there's a sagittal section, there's one mid-sagittal that's right in the middle. Beautiful, look at this brain. And so we use all these sections in health, right? Sagittal, transverse, frontal. All right, and now we'll get into histology. Also realize a cross section is right across. The word oblique means at an angle. All right, and this will be a longitudinal section. You see it this way. So in the kidney tubes, we'll see a longitudinal section. If you see a long tube, a perfect cross section will be a circle, and an oval means it's cut at an oblique angle. Hey, all right, we're just about done here. All right. Woo. So when we talk about someone comes in like, oh, where's the pain? Well, we're going to just use these. Like, so right through your belly button, umbilicus, imagine making a line across and up and down. And then you can talk about the right and left upper quadrants, the right and left lower quadrants. So we'll go with that. So let me just ask you, you should know this. Here we go. So what if a person has pain in the right upper quadrant? You just should know like what you would suspect. What do you guys think? Just raise your hand. Kidding, I can't see you. Usually right upper quadrant is a gallbladder. Causes a lot of issues in pain. Yeah. And the other big one is right lower quadrant. If you have pain, persistent throbbing pain in the right lower quadrant, appendix. All right. I'll talk more about that. Don't ignore it. And then left lower, I mean, any of the lowers could be ovaries, bladder issues, kidney stone coming down the ureter, yeah. Left upper, it's more your stomach and your spleen are up there, yeah. And then you can get this, I'm just saying, I won't quiz you on, I won't test you on this, but you can even split it, the nipples, put 2 lines this way, 2 lines this way, and you can talk about even some more subdivisions. All right, you guys. So lots of lecturing, look at that. And we have Monday, Wednesday, hour, 20-minute lectures. Like I say, I will have breaks when we're in person to break in the middle. But hopefully you got some big picture stuff. I took this opportunity to talk about human anatomy physiology in the big picture, some history, Then body cavities and sections. You just need to get this stuff and this terminology in chapter 1. All right. So the next chapters we'll talk about cells, the cell physiology, histology. And that'll be our first section. All right, you guys. Wish I could see you, but I will see you next week. And hopefully these lectures are helpful. Email me any issues. If you have issues with Connect or CurveCloud, it's not really going to help to message me if you can't have problems with Connect, because you just got to call McGraw-Hill. I mean, I'm not a tech. That's not my thing. I mean, I want you guys to be in the class and I'll help facilitate. But if you're having problems connecting or using a code, talk to the McGraw-Hill. They have customer service 24 hours a day. And so I want you to get that set up. Hopefully you guys can read chapter 1. You can listen to a couple lectures. And yeah, I'm excited. Good. All right. Enjoy the rest of the day, you guys. It's great to talk to you at least. And I look forward to seeing you guys in person.